The more decisions we can take off people's plates, the better their experience.
It's way cheaper to keep a customer as opposed to going out and spending money to acquire a new one.
Staff churn equals customer churn.
If you go even 1% above your competition, you're winning that business.
It takes almost zero time, but the effects that it has increase that customer's retention.
If you have a customer experience problem, you've got a business problem.
Don't walk through the employee door. Let's go through the front door where the customers come, and let's really critically look at this. How do you fix it when, not if, it happens?
Welcome to the Millionaire University podcast. I'm your host, Brien Gearin, and on this edition of the MU Pod, I'm joined by Samantha Irwin. She's the owner of Kaizen Coaching and Consulting, and guys, she's like the customer experience and people wizard. So Samantha, I'm super stoked to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Full disclosure to our audience, Samantha and I have already nerded out for like 25 minutes. We have a lot in common, very big on the customer experience, the importance of employees and teammates within a business, especially small businesses where there's so many millions of moving parts and typically one, maybe two owners working together to solve all these parts and problems. And there's a massive focus or should be a massive focus on people in the business and those people who are customer facing, providing the first lines of experience. And throughout the entire process of working with a business, whether it's a service or a product business, people are at the center of this. And if you have people problems, you have a customer experience problem. And if you have a customer experience problem, you've got a business problem. So Samantha, I am super stoked. We're just going to dive right in here. First of all, Kaizen Coaching Consulting, how long have you been doing it? And what are the types of businesses that you work with in this line of work?
Well, I feel like I've been doing this kind of thing, preparing for it for my whole life. I taught middle school. I was an educator. I have my master's in education and love that. So that tells people right there when they have middle school kids and they hear me say, I love middle school teaching, they think, ooh, one of those crazy nuts, which is true. They're so fun. And that's why I first learned how people learn within kids and then how to uplift, because I loved those kids that had like behavior issues and learning problems, and to create a culture within the classroom where it wasn't gripey. Had to turn it around, and where they were inspired, challenged because they needed to perform, uplifted and supported. That's where I really honed those skills as far as being able to create the culture within a classroom, because they had to, they had to stand up and do their things and take their guesses and take their risks and feel safe to do it. So that was chapter 1, and loved it, but got frustrated with the system itself. So transitioned, and I was, 2 years into maybe praying and pressing into what are the next things? What do I love to do? What am I naturally gifted at? And people had often called me to organize or help with weddings and events. And long and short, ended up buying a boutique hotel that was empty. It was 21 rooms, beautiful, 3-story brick building. And I'm on the West Coast, so East Coasters, you can giggle, but for us, it was old. It was built in 1907. If you
That's
have
old enough.
European people, they're like, oh my gosh, that's a baby. So fell in love with this hotel. I walked in the back door with my husband and the owner, Howard Green. And I remember exactly in this empty dining room with these beautiful big windows where I was standing when I had the vision for what this space could look and feel like, as well as the acre of grounds, as well as the 650 person community. So I'm an entrepreneur, but hadn't had like a lot of formal training. So I bought the hotel and started a lot of renovation. It hadn't been open since the 40s, consistently as a hotel. 21 rooms, empty, no staff, no SOPs, no nothing, no clients. And so did a lot of stripping woodwork. So I went from teaching to stripping woodwork, opened that and ran it. I realized very quickly that I had to have people. If I wasn't going, I couldn't do all of the things. So I owned and operated that, created a destination wedding and event center and a boutique hotel. It was so amazing. And after, I think it was 15 or 16, sold that. And so then in a couple of years, I started doing consulting. People asked me if I could help them. Particularly the first client was wanting me to help them with their wedding venue. So that's the trajectory of the story. So when people ask, how long have you been doing things? I'm like, well, since Kaizen means continual improvement, I feel like everything mushes together. So
Wonderful. Well, I think that positions you very well to discuss our big topic today, which is customer experience. So many business owners, whether they're just getting started, maybe they're aspiring entrepreneurs, or especially those that are in the thick of it, at some point in time, you're going to realize that the customer experience means something, and you're going to have a decision as to whether or not you're going to pay attention to it and to what degree, especially with like using local service businesses as an example. This is one of the most important places where the experience matters, but 9.5 out of 10 businesses are not going to give you an experience that surprises and delights and knocks your socks off. And when you do that, that will make that customer a client for life. And one of the things that's important about that in terms of going the extra mile, and we'll talk about examples of what going the extra mile means, but it's such a less expensive way to maintain your business and to grow your business, not to maintain, I should say to grow your business, because it's way cheaper to keep a customer on some sort of recurring basis as opposed to going out and spending money to acquire a new one. So this kind of lends itself. You have a cool flywheel example that you're sharing with me earlier. I'd love to let you dive into that right now about kind of the stages of the customer experience journey, if you will. So I want to throw the mic back to you and let's dive into, you can hold that up for our, if anyone's checking us out on YouTube, but we're going to talk about it here audibly, of course, what that is, what that journey looks like, and how you've kind of made it into a wheel as opposed to like a traditional funnel, if you will.
Yeah. You used all the words. I thought we'll paint a picture for your listeners. So, and because you do marketing and you have to always do marketing, there's never a time when you won't do marketing. Customer acquisition is just, I think it's much more common than customer retention in the minds of business owners. So if you think of like, people will think of marketing as a funnel, right? You have all the people and then you move them through the process. So people can think of, who are listening, of a funnel, like a triangle. Customer journey can be in that shape. And it can also be in the shape, often if you Google it, of like a pathway, a linear left to right or right to left, however you're looking at it. It looks like a little path, like you come in, you are aware of the place, then you decide and you have an experience. So those linear maps, they project an image of being on a treadmill, which a lot of business owners feel like they're on a treadmill. There's so much lost money when we miss the retention piece. So what I did is I created a customer journey map where we curate the whole experience, and I'll hold this up for the people on YouTube. It looks like a Ferris wheel if you're listening. Let me use a coffee shop example. I go to your town and I decide, oh, I'm going to go to a coffee shop. What do? I Google and I look at the Yelp reviews. This is what you're increasing my awareness as a customer, a potential customer for the business that you serve, Brien. And then from the marketing efforts that Brien has marvelously created, I decide on a coffee shop and I'm on my way. So yes, there's Google Maps, but also signage works 24/7. So there's particular things to do when people are on their way that you're curating their experience to make it easier. I say this very affectionately, idiot-proof things for people. The more decisions we can take off people's plates, the better their experience. Let's have a sign that's not like this against the window, but like this against the window. That's not plastered on your window, but it's perpendicular to your window. So then they have the entrance or the lot. People are having an experience here with the people. You and I talked about this earlier. This is the most financially profitable piece in the customer retention and the customer experience journey.
That's the people in the business.
That's
like
the people in the business. Yeah,
teammates.
thank you. Because I forget. Sorry, I forgot about my listeners. I needed to tell you what it was. The with the people stage, because whether you're answering the phone or whether you're in person, the people, the staff that we have, they have incredible power and influence over the trajectory of the customer's day, which affects their tips, which affects the profitability of the business. People need to have a few soft skills in order to make that difference for themselves, for the customer, and for the business. This is my hill that I will preach from forever, is with the people. We've got to support the people. And then you have a with the product. So let's say you and I and your wife, we all went out to coffee at this coffee shop. We're having a great experience with the people. Maybe the coffee was mediocre. We'll come back because we had a good experience with the people. If the people make us feel like an interruption to their work, not the reason for their work, people can conjure up pictures in their mind of that experience. We can go to the coffee shop across the street, even if our mocha or whatever was amazing. Many business owners put so much emphasis on the product or the service and ignore, because it's hard, the people part. And I wish they
Yeah.
would turn it around. They both need to be
You
excellent.
you can have an even call it a mediocre product, not that you should or would want
Right.
to, but if you have incredible customer service and happy, attentive people that are proactively solving customer issues before they even happen and they're doing it with a smile on their face,
Mm-hmm.
you can cover for a lot of other issues in the business that are totally solvable. Because I can't tell you, I've been to, it's not very common anymore, but I've been to businesses where my wife, I annoy her so much when we go somewhere and there's a bad customer experience. I'm like, that shouldn't happen. That shouldn't happen. She's like, just shut up and enjoy the food. But it's like, no, you need to, I'm the customer here. We are paying you. We are here for a good
Yeah.
time. We want to be treated the way we should be treated as your customer. And even if the product's not that great, like if the steak isn't that great, but the service was unreal,
Yeah.
what do you think I'm going to go tell my friends? I'd be like, that was incredible. The service was amazing. The steak was actually okay. But like in my mind, I'm going to lift up the food because the service was so great.
Yeah.
Now, hopefully the product is just as great as the service, but it's incredible how so many business owners have that backwards.
Yes.
Where it's just a complete like product, like you were saying, product only. The product, everyone will come for the product. It's like, no, people come a lot for the service.
Yes.
And if you go even 1% above your competition, you're winning that business.
Yes, I totally agree with you. I've thought about this so much. And my hypothesis is that, well, when I'm speaking or working with people and I pose this question to groups of, 300 business leaders and it gets a giggle. I'll say, who here loves working and leading people? And so they decided, God, this is my passion. I really want to do this. What kind of business could I start? Oh, let's start a coffee shop or a construction company. No, it's never that way. It's always, I'm excited about the product or the service or the need I can fill. Here's my business idea. And then it's almost like crikeys. Now I've got to have people. And that in and of itself, learning to lead, inspire, educate, and motivate people, you could take a lifetime to learn that one thing. So Kaizen, I'm going to pop back for a second, but Kaizen, my business name, means continual improvement. So we don't have to be perfect to begin with. What's important is that we're taking steps in the right direction in that people department, because when we do, we are increasing our employee retention, which saves small businesses thousands of dollars, depending on your minimum wage. Like over here in just across the river in Washington, for an hourly employee, I'll pause and let people guess. How much money do they think turnover costs them? Like if I'm turning over someone at the hotel, housekeeper or front desk person, people can think for a moment. You got your guess? The answer the statistics show, and of course this is dependent on your wage in your state, but next door in Washington it's $9,000. I know of no business owner that would say, yeah, I don't need an extra $9,000 or more a year. So when we can reduce that turnover for our staff, it saves our businesses so much money, and staff churn equals customer churn. So there's the second dagger. When our staff is constantly either giving crappy experiences or they're just not there, right? You don't feel as welcomed when you come into a place. The last part on step 6, all the people who are listening, there's 6 steps to this customer journey map that is like a Ferris wheel. The last one I call the dating game. And that is huge for businesses. Often they think of marketing, which is step 1, but not as often do they think about retention. And when Brien has brilliantly found you the right fit client, that retention piece is so profitable when we're thinking about our customer and what do we do once they leave? You and I and your wife, we went out to the coffee shop. We had a great experience. We had great coffee. We step out of the door and we are accosted by all the other things, kids, dogs, smells from other places, boutique, all these other, everybody else's marketing dollars is trying to get us. So a responsibility of a business is, what can I do to retain that person once they leave because they're forgetting about me? And that's a fun piece to work on as well.
Let's dive into the retention part of it. So I think, as we've established, a lot of businesses, they're just concerned about bringing you in, cashing that check, and then you're off into the breeze. But what can business owners, or especially newer business owners, what can they do today in their business to change, whether it's the mindset or the actual physical actions that they take within their business, to start focusing more on the importance of retention? What are a few steps they could take today? Let's use just a service-based business as an example, or the coffee shop business, since we've already been using that. Use as an example of, okay, I've got this business. How do I fix my retention problems today?
Okay, so a couple ideas. So if we're going to just riff off here, and let's use the coffee shop as an example. So when we're leaving the coffee shop, one of the pieces for retention, we do have to back up because it's with the people. If the people have written on my coffee mug and they've written my name, or even they've drawn a heart or a star or whatever, that takes almost zero time. But the effects that it has help increase my retention, or increase that customer's retention. It makes them feel special. Tiny little thing, saying thank you as you leave. That's something you can incorporate. If I leave the coffee shop and I'm getting a thank you, boy, how would you feel if you left a coffee shop and someone said, thank you for visiting, or have a great day?
That'd be great.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's simple.
Doesn't happen much anymore.
It doesn't happen very much. Or on my receipt, saying thank you and writing my name. That's a way to increase retention. Oftentimes, customers will receive a receipt. On the receipt, rather than just a generic receipt, we can customize it with a thank you gift, a thank you card, or a thank you note, or even a gift of give this to a friend for 10% off their first visit, or come back in and get a free sticker or an upgraded coffee mug or whatever if you come in within the next 5 days. Something to increase retention, something that makes me, when I leave, want to come back right away and remember the great experience. Do you have any other ideas? Have we been riffing off?
Have you been seeing me stewing in my brain about things a coffee shop could do? How about this? Every day, the coffee shop owner designates 10 $5 gift cards. And at the discretion of the barista, once they return your receipt, almost like like $20 handshakes, underneath the receipt, they can include a $5 gift card and just give that person a special thank you. Thank you so much for coming in today. Here's a $5 gift card on us. We'd love to see you back again. Or if it's someone they haven't seen before, someone that's not a regular, and even you can include the regulars, keep them coming back.
Yeah.
10 a day, $50. Just write that off the bottom line. But it's a tiny step you can take to keep bringing people back.
Yeah.
Like the small stuff with the receipt, making sure that you have one person designated to do a round in the shop every 20 minutes. Go around to people at their tables and be like, are you guys enjoying your coffees? Is there anything we can do for you?
Yeah.
Like just jutting in for 1 second, just like a good restaurant, they'll have a manager come by and make sure you enjoyed your meal.
Yeah.
But doing that with everybody, as many customer touch points as you can have, I don't know. So I
like that so much because I don't know about how it is in Ohio, but out here, there's so many places that are transitioning to, you go in and you order, and I have to go pick up my utensils. They give me the plate, but I have to go pick up the utensils. I have to go pick up the water, and then I bus my own table. I'm like,
what?
Okay. And
what is going on out there?
Yeah. And then you want me to tip? Okay. Well, yeah. Yeah. And I get where they're going. Employees are expensive. They are expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And like what you're saying is a huge piece that's missing. And how would people feel? It would feel great if you just had somebody coming over and asking you.
And as that customer, you know what I'm going to do the minute I leave that shop? I'm going to be like, that was really cool.
Yeah.
Anytime someone wants to go get coffee, I'm taking them here. Anytime
Absolutely.
someone says, where's a good coffee place? I'm sending them there. You have created a salesperson out of me because you just gave me such a positive experience.
Yeah.
And I know when I come back, now I know there's a possible chance you might hand me a $5 gift card. Now there's like the gamification of it.
Right.
It's playing the consumer psychology, but doing it in just being a genuinely nice business of being, do unto others as you would want done to you. It's so simple, but it's small things that make such a big difference.
Yeah.
Let's take a couple steps back because a big part of this is people.
Yes.
And you mentioned out in your home state, out in Oregon, they're starting to not have as many people in the restaurant. That's like you're going to go bus your table, you're going to pour your water, and go get your silverware. Is there like I don't want to call it a crisis, but a lack of people that have this giving mindset or, being able to communicate? Is this a communication issue? Is there a way to perhaps maybe your employees, you don't feel they're the most extroverted, not that they have to be, but can you train people in this manner that perhaps you feel might not be anywhere near it today?
Oh my gosh, that is a brilliant question. I did not lead the witness here, but particularly when hiring for front-facing customer service jobs, there's a specific God-given gift that you look for. People have it or they don't. And believe me, I am speaking from experience because I super desired to fill a position that I very much needed to have filled. And I knew this person was organized, they were on time, they were dependable, They presented themselves well. It was a very front-facing position in our hotel. And I hired that person thinking that I could help them be more openly welcoming. You hire personality and then you train the skills being how do I do the things in the business. The personality, I did it backwards. And let me tell you, you cannot train the gift of hospitality because it is a gift. So just because, and it's easier to identify if you have it, but one of the things that helps business owners understand what this gift is and how to look for it, because when you and I have been talking about curating the customer experience and how people help people feel welcomed and how people help your business grow and create advocates of your customer. That happens, of course, with the product, but a huge portion happens with the interaction from person to person. So those people have to have people skills or the gift of hospitality. It's like, okay, get it. Yep, I get it. How do you identify what that is? So how people start to identify it, if they don't have it or they're not aware, is I ask them a few questions. So if you think about family events that you go to, think aunts, uncles, grandparents, cousins, whatever, even best friends or not best friends, when you haven't seen someone for a long time and you walk into their home, who do you walk into the home and you just feel like you got a giant hug from that person? And there might be people in your family that you walk in and you don't feel that way. There's a reason. If you have a grocery checkout line and there's lots of checkers, do you specifically look for a specific checker and go stand in their line if it's longer? Same thing for a restaurant. Do you ask for a certain table or even a barista? Are you hoping, or a person, are you hoping you get this person and not that person? Most likely, those people have the gift of hospitality. Just like if a child that you have is gifted in math, if we don't train or help nurture those math skills, then they're not going to develop to their full potential. Hospitality is something that is not trained in school. It's not tested in school. It's not necessarily valued in our culture. And that is 100% wrong, because when we hire for personality, when people have those people skills and we build on them with some specific soft skills, it is a game changer for business and retention. Game changer.
Absolutely.
I'm going to pop back. You had a thought, about the gift cards, which I loved. Got so excited about that. And it helped me come up with another one, which is planted in the people retention department, in the employee retention department, and the customer retention department, based on what you had just said with the gift cards. Let's say, for example, I love this stuff because this is how businesses get better, as you connect with this kind of thing.
That's
and you
right.
get ideas. So let's say I work at your coffee shop and I really love books. Okay. Instead of a gift card, or in addition to, I have my own personal book recommendations. When I go into a bookstore, I'm always reading those. Always. You can take that same principle and apply it to whatever interests that an employee has. And then they could put their own little recommendation for the local bookstore with their top 5 favorite ones. So then, you're creating this real giving society. If I feel like you as my employer are interested in my personal interests, which maybe is reading, and then you're taking my personal interests and you're adding value from me to the customer and then also to another business, you've just created a loyal staff member who's going to show up on the sick days or cover when someone calls in sick. And then we're also making a connection. Maybe the next customer that's one of your regulars comes in, and then we start talking about books and geeking out. And then my customer loyalty increases because they feel like, oh my gosh, I'd love to talk to Samantha about books. And then the bookstore down the road is super excited because you're sending people down there to buy books. And they might include some gift certificates or whatever, or ideas.
Do you have examples of how you can empower employees because it's one thing to lead by example and to instruct employees and teammates on how you're supposed to do this or how you should act. But I could see it'd be very easy for a teammate to be like, well, that's your personality and that's how you do it. And I'm not sure that's me. So how can we empower our team to have this type of, unreasonable hospitality that is included or needed from your business? How do you empower them to be able to find that on their own, or I like kind of your idea with the bookstore here, but do you think we could rattle off some ideas of how to empower your team to continue to provide that hospitality?
One way, it's the foundation of being able to do just that. And it's creating space and listening, asking. So step one is to step away from the busyness of all the things people have to do to run their business. And I've been there. I get it. It's hard because there's a million things to do. I think Michael Hyatt said, need to get comfortable with an undone task list every day. So creating the space and simply asking the questions, asking for input, saying, here's our ideas. Like what we're doing right now, people can do that with their employees, but then it's so much listening. If we put ourselves in a position of, let's say somebody it's their first, second job, not their maybe forever job, but they're in school or they're earning money for things. They've been in a position where they're hopefully have been asked to input, but it's a lot of giving. Like they're receiving a lot of information. They're used to, in general, having their parents tell them what to do and help them create boundaries and structure, have their teachers help them, blah, blah, blah. Maybe a teacher, a coach, or a parent, it's sad, but this is true, someone has given their opinion or an idea and been shut down. That happens. It happens to all of us. So as a leader, understanding that we don't know, but the person in front of us that we're leading may have that experience, and it might take a while for them to come out of their shell, to trust us, to hold their ideas with value, and to actually want to hear them and not just say, I want to hear it, but then I'm going to tell you why it doesn't work. Let's not do that.
I guess you can compare it to crowdsourcing with your team. Like, hey guys, we're going to sit down and I'm going to ask you all to answer this question. What's one way, or what are two ways that we can improve the experience of our customers today?
Yeah.
And then go around the room and say, all right, what are your two ideas? And they could be like, this and that. Okay. This and that. This. Okay. And then you can all be like, you know what, guys, those were really good ideas. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Like it could have been, I don't know, you're a lawn care company and you hang your tag on the door and you include a free round on us just as a thank you for being a client for a year or whatever. But just crowdsource the ideas with your people and use some of them. Obviously, if they need feedback and they need improvement, that's totally fine. Make sure you provide that feedback, but use those ideas, empower them to actually go out and put it into play. And not only just say, hey, that's good, let me put that into action. It's like, hey, that's good. How can we go put that into play?
Yeah.
Like, let them actually take ownership of the system they developed, or the little thing that they want to do. And then also, I think this would be helpful, is to track results from it. Like if it is something like leaving a little gift in the hang tag after you provide a home service, track the responses from it. Maybe there's a coupon code or something like that. I don't know. There's ways to track that. But then show to your teammate that, hey, look, your idea just generated an extra $2,000 or $10,000, whatever it might be. Thank you for that contribution. Here's a $100 gift card to your favorite steakhouse, or I don't know, like you just contributed $10,000 to the bottom line. Now, as an employee, as we get back towards retention, your employee is happy because they feel incredibly valued at the fact that that was their idea. They made the company more money and you rewarded them. Yeah. Like now you've got this feedback loop, and I'll bet you this teammate's going to be awfully happy, right?
Yeah.
Like they're not going to want to leave that job. They're not going to want to do a poor job. So it's kind of one of those things where you just continually build the snowball and start rolling it down the hill.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you about the key, to me, this is a key aspect, communication. When it comes to customer experience, especially in the services or the trades businesses, I think it's really a thing that's kind of non-existent. So tell me, in your experience, what role does communication play in the customer experience, and how do you see that as we are today in business? I'll give you an example. If we have a home service company and they don't call me when they're on their way over, or there's an expected time window, but I'd really love to have a set appointment, or we're in a big project, we're spending $50,000 on a home addition. To me, I want to be communicated constantly. Even if I feel it's over communication, at least I know where we are in the process. Yeah. I know where the overruns are. I know where we are with the budget. I'm going crazy here with this one, but is the root of that the communication between the employer and the employee, or is that just in your basic SOP from front of house worker to the customer?
It's such a great, I'm glad you brought it up. what that communication piece is, oftentimes it's the ability or training or helping people understand what the whole experience is for the customer. So in the customer journey map, every step matters, because let's use a coffee shop example. I go in and it's like, I smell these amazing things. And you're like, oh, I want this great whatever that I just smelled. For me, it's gluten-free something or other. And I go up and I have a good experience with the barista. And let's say that the health department, the back of the house they're always getting the best reviews. Like, it is clean and so safe and perfect back there. Am I, as a customer, going into the kitchen? No. I am going into the bathroom. I am touching a sticky or non-sticky door when I come in or go out, or table or salt and pepper shakers. Each part of the customer experience matters. That matters to my tips if I'm working. Helping people understand, helping staff understand, yes, there may be somebody who just does the cleaning. There may be someone who just does an installation, or there may be someone who just does, let's use a contracting business. Like, there's someone who does the phones. There's someone who does the billing. There's someone who does the installation. There's someone who does the cleanup. Those oftentimes are viewed as silos. And in a business, yes, they are. That's true. However, from a customer's point of view, they're not. They are all connected. So helping staff to understand that every part of first of all, what is the customer journey? Like, it's super fun to ruin people, teach them about this, have them walk through, don't walk through the employee door. Let's go through the front door where the customers come, and let's really critically look at this. What do we want people to know, to do, and to feel every step of their journey? What is the journey? And then what we want them to know, do, and feel. So, two things that are important when we understand the whole customer journey and how each piece, each step or touch point is tied together, is proactive communication and managing expectations. You hit the nail on the head when you said you can't well, you maybe can, but it's highly unlikely to under communicate. Like what you're talking about, I want to know when you're coming. I want to know how long you'll be here if you're doing construction. Let's clean up the place afterwards, making sure all things are put back. Those are very important parts of curating the experience. So proactive communication and managing expectations. For business owners that are in service-based, there's an example here of this fantastic, he's got a ProShine. It's a window cleaning and house cleaning service, exterior. And one of the things that they do is, if I book an appointment with them, I receive an email with that person's picture and their name and what their title is. So I know who's coming to my home. If I am a single woman out in the boonsticks or whatever, even not in the boonsticks, it's comforting to know who's going to be showing up on my door. Okay? Or if you're an old person, or even if you're not an old person, it's just nice to know. It's helping people. Right. You're taking out all the bumps, smoothing
you're
the
connecting
experience.
The dots. That's right.
Yeah.
And that's an example of going the extra mile, where I think even people might not realize it, but when they get that text that says, hey, Tony, your technician is on the way. He'll be there in about 17 minutes. It's got a picture of him, happy, smiling, in uniform. And when that's the person that shows up, like, now in your brain, your consumer brain and your just personal brain, it's connected the dots that, oh, Tony's coming. He's fixing the air conditioner. And Tony's going to be properly trained to greet me, to, put his little booties on to walk in the door and keep the mud off my floor, and he's going to do a good job. Like, you're pre-setting that expectation in the consumer's brain that this is going to be a good experience. Yes. So taking those extra steps before you even provide the service with communication makes a huge difference. Yep. Like confirming appointments, sending those types of texts you just explained. There's one company that handles our HVAC here, and they do that. I don't think I've had that from another company before, and it makes a really big difference. Yeah. So I love that example.
Yeah. And exceeding expectations. I have an online training course, and that's one of the modules, is exceeding expectations. This is a little bit of a rabbit trail, but I believe it's important. Many business owners, myself included, often we're type A. We want things done a certain way, and we want customers to come back, and we want staff to feel valued, which micromanagement is in direct opposition of that, but things have to be done the same way. Things need to be done or made, let's say, in a specifically certain way that's consistent. because as a consumer, I want a consistent product experience and I want a consistent customer experience if I'm going to be really loyal and an advocate for the business. The product, a lot of people have that down. The customer experience, that's that people part that really makes a difference. So when training staff, one of the ways to empower them to be more like partners, not pencil pushers or clock punchers, empowering them. And you will mess up. Like, just say it. Like, everybody will mess up. A customer is going to come in because you messed up on something that it was your fault. Or a customer comes in, you happen to be working, and somebody else made the mistake, but oh, lucky me.
Or
Oh,
it might
lucky
not be
you.
your fault.
It is not your fault, but you get to deal with it. Or maybe people, sometimes they're just in a bad mood. And customer service is so hard. It's very, very hard. And when it's done well, is an art form. So teaching staff the correct way to fix a mistake. First, I teach 3 steps. Like, first you rip the Band-Aid off. You acknowledge, you don't necessarily have to admit like you were wrong, because sometimes you're not. Sometimes you just have to acknowledge the pain point for the person. And man, I've been on the giving end of that and the receiving end of that. And boy, does it deflate my balloon when I'm on the receiving end of being angry about something. Just a simple acknowledgement, like, Cal, that would have made me really mad too. That's what one woman said to me. I remember I was in a parking lot and it was about healthcare and my mom. And boy, all of a sudden she became my advocate instead of my adversary. So first it was acknowledgement. Then it's meeting expectations. So what would be done at a minimum to fix the problem? And that's great. That's, in my opinion, baseline. But I don't want to do anything baseline, because I want to turn this experience from this customer, I want to turn them into advocates. We turn them into advocates with step 3, which is exceeding expectations. And this is the fun part, because this is where people get to get creative. And as a boss and owner, you can give people a sandbox to play in. Like, you have this much money to exceed expectations, or this much money to surprise and delight, or this many gift certificates to give to our top 20%, or whatever. I don't know if we have time, but I can tell you an example of how a painful one of my own experience of exceeding expectations that was very uncomfortable.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, okay.
Let's hear the example.
So I don't have the hotel anymore, but when we had the hotel, when I taught school, a recurring nightmare the day before school is you show up without pants. No matter how many years you've taught, you have this nightmare that you're going to show up unprepared, and it symbolizes that you don't have pants on, but no one notices. So when I stopped teaching, I was excited not to have that dream anymore, but I got a new one, a nightmare. Double booking, right? I only had 21 rooms. There was no other place to stay. None. The nearest place was 25 minutes away. So it was a beautiful summer weekend. We were booked solid. We were booked full, and we had a double system of reservations. There's a thing called the folio that you hand wrote on, and then there's a big desk calendar. And we were just getting started, and so we weren't doing all these online reservations. But it was a cool way to help curate the experience. And so it was a double check system. Worked great until it didn't. I was on my way out the door, had great staff. It was a Friday, beautiful weather, full. Like mopping 30 minutes down the road, they're going to be full, I'm assuming. I had booked a room for 2 nights for a couple for room 15, which is a view room, a mountain view room with a bath across the hall. We're just getting ready to leave, and my staff comes up to me and they said, I just checked these people into room 15, and they have what's called the folio, not the master calendar, but she said they weren't on the master calendar. And I have this folio for room 15 for some other guests that are not yet here, but they're supposed to come. And I will never tell who made the mistake till the day I die. But we had a situation. There was literally no room in the inn, and there was no barn in the back.
Yeah.
I started sweating buckets because these people were going to be arriving shortly. So it was back in the day where cell phones weren't as common. I called their phone, hoping they hadn't left. I knew where they lived, Portland, which was 2 hours away. I'd hoped they hadn't left, but they'd left. So now what do? I'm like, you got to solve the problem, man. Solve the problem. These people, like, I'm thinking about them. They're coming. They're not going to want to drive back home, right? I want them to have an experience in something that is, I don't want to send them to a Motel 6. We are not a Motel 6. They came here for a specific reason. So I needed to find a like-minded place. So I called Imperial River Company in Maupin. And before the woman could even say hello, practically, I spilled this out, and thank goodness she had one. So I found them and we paid for their room that night. And then they don't know any of this. And then the next night they came back to our place because we had the room open and they got to stay for free. And then that's like meeting their expectations, in my opinion. So they came in and here I am. I am literally sweating because this first step one is so uncomfortable. And it gets worse. It was hot. They were tired. I said, oh, hello. I'm Samantha. I talked to them on the phone. And they said, yeah, we almost didn't come because our dog passed away this morning.
Oh.
Oofda.
Cherry on top.
And yikes. I know that there's no place for them to stay here. I felt so bad. And so I had to rip off the Band-Aid and get through step one as quickly as possible to give them a solution. So I admitted the problem. I said, here's what happened. I saw their faces and their heaviness and their sadness. And then I said, but I have a place for you in Maupin. It's paid for and it's ready for you. It is a bit of a drive. So we had treats in the room for them. And I said, please don't love it more than us. Come back the next night, Saturday, and you can stay with us. And they're like, okay, and off they went, kind of shell-shocked. So I was hoping they would come, and they did. So they went to Maupin. We had treats in their room. They came back to Dufur at our place, and we had treats for them as well. They wanted at this point to pay for their room, and we said no. So it's rip the Band-Aid off, step one, meet expectations, basically solve the problem. They need a room. That's step two. Mm-hmm. Step three is the fun part. So not only did we gift them, and my staff was like, oh my gosh, this is costing a lot of money. You paid for their place there. You're paying for their time here. You paid for treats there. You paid for treats here, wine, this chocolate cake that we had. And then we gave them a 2 nights gift certificate for an upgraded room that they could use or they could gift. We didn't care. There was no restrictions on it. So that's how we exceeded their expectations. Mm-hmm. That narrative, their narrative changed from, oh my gosh, we had this horrible day. We went and they didn't have a room and right? Wah, wah. Terrible for your marketing and retention. To, oh my gosh, we had this terrible day. We came, this happened, and then this happened. These people took care of us. My husband to this day gets teary. He's like, thinks about that situation. And those people wrote us one of the best reviews we'd ever had. So people will make mistakes. Wow. So empowering people with the skills and the tools. How do you fix it when, not if it happens? I love that part.
I love that example because literally as you were telling that story, I'm sitting there in my head like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. I could picture you in that moment, just hearts sinking and you're like, holy crap, we have a major problem. And then of course, those people were having a bad day to begin with. And it's just like, all right, how can we do this? And it's one of those where you'd have to have that feeling of like, we have to make it right, but then we have to exceed it because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
It also happens to be the best thing you could possibly do for your business. Yeah. So why wouldn't you do it, right? It's just a good human thing to do, is to take care of the people that were inconvenienced due to one of your errors, right? Yeah. So yeah, that's a perfect example. I could go into so many I've had just as a consumer that were good and bad, but one with a hotel chain I'm still trying to figure out. So, but we could go for another hour here, Samantha, but we should probably get moving. I know you're busy and you got to get back to work. So I want to thank you so much for your time and knowledge here. I think this is such a important thing in business that gets overlooked a lot because people are just like, oh, show me the money, bottom line, let's go, let's turn out the revenue. But you got to think about your people and you got to think about the front lines, the people who are providing the customer experience at your business. Yeah. So I want to make sure that anybody out there listening to us today, if they want to reach out to you, if they want to get a hold of your content, possibly even work with you, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
I would say the website, and it's kaizen.zone. So KAIZEN.zone, not .com, .zone, kaizen.zone. That's probably the best way. And then I'm also on LinkedIn. And then we can, if your people need, I'll put a free download for the customer journey workbook.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We'll include that in the show notes for sure. So yeah, folks, make sure you check out the show notes and get the customer journey workbook. Obviously, it'd be very well worth your time to check that out. If customer experience isn't on the brain, it should be. And hopefully this is something that jogs that for you. Or if it's something that's been on your brain and you need some help with it, make sure you check out Samantha. She's an expert in this area. Again, thank you so much for joining us, and best of luck to you in the rest of this year.
Yeah, you as well with your move. Congrats.
All right. Thank you.